Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Global Exclusive Podcast. I'm Muspel, and joining me this week is Barros,
Hey, Muspel.
and we are going to be talking about the Final Fantasy IV banner
Well, the
and
second one.
the the great excitement that we have towards what happened this week.
Yeah. So
So,
go ahead. Go
you
ahead.
might say that we're on the edge of our seats.
Yeah. Really, really. I love. You know what I love about this banner and this event? The fact that nobody fucking cares about Edge, even though he seems like a decent unit. He seems like a decent, high breaker, evade tank, chainer, burster, whatever. Like, mediocre at best. But what I like is that this banner really encapsulates this week's feeling. First of all, we have the event called The Rage of Men, right? And that couldn't describe the state of FFBE more than what it is today. Because, like, holy shit, everyone is raging. Some are leaving, you know. And then another event on this banner is also a sorrowful farewell.
Yeah. So, I'm quitting FFBE. So this will likely be my last episode on the podcast. The podcast itself will still be going, but I will not be on it anymore.
And we are so sad for you. And a lot of people in the Discord were really worried. They were like, is Barros gonna record on his own? That's gonna suck. But what we did is me and Dream found another time. So we'll be recording, and we're actually gonna be trying to get the episodes out on either Thursday evening or Friday morning. So that'll be, or actually for NA people, it will be probably very much in time for when, when the
Yeah.
banner is still fresh. So that's gonna be good.
Yeah. For those that aren't aware, scheduling the podcast was always a huge headache because I'm on the U.S. West Coast, Barros is in Europe, Dream is in New Zealand, Cotton is in Australia, Shadow is in, I think, Western Canada. So there's usually like a 1 hour window that is not an ungodly hour for someone.
Yeah, until daylight saving times fucks everyone over. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Because did you know that daylight saving times goes backwards in the southern hemisphere? I
yeah, it's
didn't
so
until we started the
fucking
podcast,
yeah. I
and then it
had no
starts,
idea.
and then it starts at different times for each country. Apparently,
Yeah, yeah, it's
oh,
it's
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 awful.
beautiful. Like I think that daylight savings time is like the best trick Satan ever pulled. All right, that's like literally his best work.
Yeah, it's impressively painful to go through scheduling around that
Yeah.
time of year.
Did you know that there was this big movement in Europe, in the EU, to actually remove daylight saving times? It got a good traction. People actually wanted to do it, but then it just got stalled, as any political move is. But I am
Yeah,
still hopeful. I'm hopeful it's gonna happen because I don't want to do this shit.
I think the problem is that you either want to have everyone do it or no one do it. Because if only some countries do it, it's even worse. Like in the U.S., Arizona does not observe daylight savings time. Every other state does, and it's even more confusing that way.
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. I get it. I get it. I agree. I agree. Everyone, or at least many enough, have to do it at once.
Yeah,
Otherwise, it's gonna suck. But yeah, that was always an issue with scheduling. Slightly easier at least now. But yeah, so
yeah.
what made you quit? What made you quit? What was the final straw that broke the dick's back, or whatever the saying? How the saying goes?
Uh, it wasn't any one thing. Honestly, it's been a really long time since there's been anything about FFBE that I particularly enjoyed. They haven't made like quote unquote real trials in years now. I think it's been years. When did we get Asura?
Yeah,
No,
it's a
it's
very
it's been
long time ago.
yeah. And like Gumi has kind of tried. I like that they've tried with Clash of Wills to make interesting bosses, but those don't really appeal to me because I don't like how they're time limited. I hate the ranked aspect, and I hate the fact that the event is over before anybody data mines the AI before we can really pull it apart and make it pick and figure out what makes it tick. Because I
Mhm.
loved looking at the wiki pages and just planning out every single turn of a boss fight. And these days, to do that, you have to go through like 14 different YouTube videos because the bosses have really complicated AIs and nobody parsed it. They just did trial and error. And then
Yeah.
something weird happens. You have to figure out what caused it. And it's just, it's so annoying.
Yeah, and I guess an addition to that, like if we're comparing it to Trials, is that there's also this huge need not just for a clean run, but also for the 100 chain cap, for all your bursts in a single turn, and so on. So it's kind of
Yeah,
changing. It's changing the enjoyment of the trial. I still enjoy cow actually. Like I enjoy cow a lot. That's definitely my favorite content. I'm very excited when cow drops, but it's absolutely a different beast compared
yeah.
to a trial. I fully agree.
When I used to do trials, I would whenever I could, I would try to do like the slow. I don't want to say safe strat, but the slow strat where I went through like all of the boss mechanics. I didn't burst or skip anything. There's a
Right.
few cases where that wasn't possible, like Gilgamesh. Doing Gilgamesh that way was you not really feasible unless you had Summer Whip, and I didn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like most other bosses, I would try to tank things that most people didn't try to tank, or otherwise just like survive mechanics that most people tried to skip.
Yeah. No, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. The slow run. I have enjoyed a couple of those myself. Like there is a certain enjoyment in kind of dealing with all of the boss's mechanics in a safe manner and knowing that your party is rock solid. I love it.
Yeah, yeah, and like I said, we haven't gotten that in a long time. And then on top of that, like I haven't done Dark Visions or Clash of Wills in 5 months, maybe longer. I've barely participated in events. I haven't done any trials since. I need to look at the list because I can't even remember all of these useless trials that they put out. Where's the list on the wiki? I haven't done anything since Ymir.
Oh wow. Well, that's a while
Yeah.
back, I guess, as well. No, I get it. I get that then, like, of course, the game becomes kind of a gacha collection sim. And
Yeah.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I guess that's always how some people play the game. Well, no, no, no. Actually, I don't have a point. I thought I had a smart point, but I don't because I'm a stupid man. I was going to say, like, that's how hoarders play the game. No, but hoarders still play the fucking events. So I'm just stupid.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, no, no, I get it. I get it. So time to like hang up the old axe. Like I am super sad. I don't know if people can hear that, but I am super sad that this is happening. It's
Yeah.
like I like the game, and I'm sad to see people leave. And I've really enjoyed our episodes, Muspel. Like I think you and me have probably been, even though we haven't been very consistent lately, I think we've still been the most consistent hosts on
Yeah.
the podcast.
Yeah. I think you're right. Cotton doesn't make it very often. Shadow hasn't been showing up much lately.
He's a daddy
And
now,
yeah.
so that takes time, of course.
Yeah.
Uh,
And Dream's been busy of late.
yeah, yeah. Although I think we have found a good time now. Let's see. Let's see.
Yeah.
Like I was like, okay, so let's do 9 a.m. your time, 10 p.m. my time, and she's like, can we do 10 a.m.? And I'm like, Jesus Christ, who has a hard time coming up, getting up at 9 a.m.? I just okay, but sure, sure, I could do 10 a.m. too, so that was fine. That's good. That's good.
Yeah. We should probably actually talk about Edge though.
You think? I mean, like, I really don't wanna, but sure. Like,
I
if you
mean,
want to. Hey,
there's more
sorry,
here.
Muspel. Okay, this is the last one. So, can you please tell us about the TMR, STMR, and VC?
You have to wait for it, Barrows. You have to earn it. You have to talk about the unit's kit first.
God damn it! I have to look at the JP page. I don't want to look at the JP page.
But Barrows, it's actually not as bad as you think. There's a lot more here than the average JP unit.
Okay, okay. Well, it is true. Like, there seems to be an interesting kit actually in this unit. So all right.
I don't know if I would go that far, but there's actual utility
Yeah, of course.
beyond just the basic role, which is, I mean, for JP, that's astounding.
Yeah, he seems to be. So he seems to be a breaker. That's the best way to
Yeah.
describe him. He's a breaker, but can do some damage too.
Yeah. The problem is the breaks are not. We have better breaks. We have 90% defense and spirit breaks
Yeah,
nowadays, and Edge only has 88%.
right. And that's on a
So
Magnus. That's only one use, and it's only 3 turns. So sure, like for the burster, I mean, since that's the only thing that matters, that's gonna be enough.
yeah, although I'm assuming that there have been clash bosses where they've dispelled themselves after an HP lock, right?
Maybe, but yeah, sure, probably.
Yeah, so he does have 87% on his LB or on his super LB anyways. Uh No, it's on the normal one too, I guess. So
Yeah.
that also works. Although the normal non-super version is only defense and spirit, not attack and magic. So for Clash, that could be problematic.
Yeah, if you're not immuning everything, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
the
he's
thing is,
also
like, you only care about the big break on the burst turn, though, so it doesn't matter that the boss dispels you, like, because you
yeah.
only need one big burst. Um, but yeah,
Are
yeah.
they back to putting passives on Clash and Dark Visions bosses?
No, well, okay, I am like, why are you asking me? I don't know these things, but I still think, like, people are still saying 90% breaks are must because there are no passives, so I'm assuming
Okay.
no. But maybe,
Yes.
I mean, who knows?
So the 88% break is going to be a significant damage loss compared to that.
Yeah, of course.
Um,
If there are no passives, that, like, every percentage counts.
yeah. He's also got two stack AoE Mirage, which isn't a year and a half ago. This would have been a pretty big deal. These days, I mean, it's not useless. Two stack Mirage is still relatively rare,
Yeah, absolutely.
but
Like, the latest cow was like, if you had two stack Mirage and a magic tank with all the resistances, you immuned all damage. So, like, having a unit like Edge that can do the role of, Imperiler, Breaker, Evade Tank, and your Mirage battery, and of course Burst Chainer on the kill turn. That's, I mean, like, it's a lot of utility in one unit. Like, it's slot efficient. Let's put it that way.
yeah. Speaking of imperils, he has 145% lightning imperil, which is the biggest in the game. It might be the biggest for any element. Do we have any other 145% imperils?
I don't know. Does Rain, like, Rain has a lot of big dick fire stuff, so he might be he might be around there, but I'm not sure. We
NP Rain?
Yeah, exactly. Rain Neovision after his crowns and
Let's
shit.
see.
He does become very strong in fire. I don't know if that counts with his imperil though. Not sure at all.
Let me check.
Hmm. I know he has, like, a really strong
No, he
amp.
has 135%.
130. Yeah, his amp is 55. That's the big dick.
Yeah,
Thing he has. But yeah, so it's a really big imperil, great for lightning teams, and, like, who, like, I mean, pairs really well with Esther in that sense, right? Like, any Esther user might want to have Edge for this awesome slot efficiency in a strong breaker. And I guess, like, if you don't have Lara, this is the second best thing. Well, actually, no, because Lara also does ridiculous amounts of damage while breaking. But
yeah. I think the problem that I would have with bringing Edge is that if it's a lightning team, you're better off using something else. Um, does Terra have imperils? Let me check.
Terra,
Yeah,
yeah, for fire on her
I
Magnus.
I wasn't sure if she had lightning. If she did, because Terra has the 40% field amp.
45, my man.
40.
45.
Wiki says 40.
Okay, fine, I concede. It's 40 then. I was so sure it's 45. Okay, but fine, it's 40.
But yeah, like if you can get that 40% field amp and like a 120% imperil, that's way better than Edge's 145%. And then you would still need to get the break from somewhere else though. So it depends on what's going on there.
Yeah,
Uh
yeah.
I guess the problem that I'm saying is with Edge, I think you need to be benefiting from him on every single axis for him to be worth the slot. And since he's a super LB unit, uh, for a lot of these bosses, you want him at EX3 so you can burst on turn 3. If you're going to turn 4 or turn 5, that can make things really messy
Yeah,
on some
and
fights.
his non SLB LB is absolute horse shit. Like, it hits for 135x. Good thing about him though is, again, like, he's built, and it's also one hit. So, like, if you were looking for that sweet AOE chain LB to, chain for your finishers, you need to use the SLB. And let's face it, nobody is taking Edge to EX3. Like, or, I
Yeah,
mean, some people are, but most
yeah.
are not taking him to
But those
EX3.
people are whales, so
Yeah,
who
exactly.
cares?
So yeah, not much to say. All right, Mespel, have I earned it? Have I earned it? Can we actually talk about the VC and TMR and STMR,
Sure, we can start with the worst one.
which is the VC?
Oh yeah. I'm looking at the JP version. I'm assuming this didn't get buffed in global, right?
Yeah, sure. Let's
Okay.
let's go with that.
All right. So this card is absolute shit.
Yeah.
It looks like one of the free cards you get from summoning a NB unit, except worse because this doesn't even have like mild uses on like a third unit that you're gearing for resists.
I guess,
Uh,
like, well, I mean, you're being a bit unfair because
am I?
yes, because remember that Elena's card, which is less attack and magic, was used as best in slot on certain units just
I
because it had
well,
50 LB damage on it.
Elena's card was used as best in slot on a couple of mages in an era when there was only like one other mage card, and that was Aerith's, and not like Cetra Descendant Aerith, the other NB
Sure,
Aerith.
sure, sure. Also, actually, since I can't read Japanese, this might be also edge, like, or restricted to Final Fantasy 4 units, the LB
Uh,
damage.
I believe that the second and third passives might be yes.
Which means that then it's absolutely horseshit, because if it had 100% LB damage, like, it could still see use on somebody that has a really hard time gearing for LB damage and killers. But if it doesn't, then yeah, no. I don't want to translate it. It probably says something about my mother's panties. I don't want to,
Uh, it might actually be breakers. I put it into Google Translate, and it says the level 10 passive translates to human anger trigger condition jamming unit. So I'm
human
assuming
anger, but that's the human killer.
human anger is probably the name of the passive because that's the first bit, and then the bit in parentheses is trigger condition jamming unit. So that
Ah,
sounds to me like debuffer or something.
yeah, sure, sure. Okay, okay. That makes sense. Sensor did say that we would get a lot of these cards and effects that are tied to a certain role. Although, like, who is like, is Lara a debuffer? Like, no, because you don't gear her for LB, so it doesn't matter. Or, well, I guess you do if you're bursting in DB, but she doesn't need the 100% LB damage.
Lara's shift is a debuffer, but like you
Ah,
said, you're not using her for that. And
yeah, but
like
you don't need
it
LB damage.
also, if you're using Lara, why in the fuck would you not put her own card on her?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly. No, no, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, sorry, I'm stretching this out way too thin. Let's move to the good
Yes,
things.
it has terrible base stats, and it has killers and LB damage, but that's not relevant because the
Yeah.
stats are too bad. Um, the STMR is a two-handed, or no,
No,
one-handed katana.
100. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I saw the variance and accuracy, and I thought it was two-handed, but it's not. It's got good attack, pretty bad magic by modern standards, uh, and I mean you can use this on a damage dealer that's dual wielding katanas, but who uses dual wield units these days? I think the bigger use for this is tanks
Yeah.
because it has 150 defense, 20% evasion, and 20% chance to be targeted. So it's it's similar to Van's STMR, except it gives you defense
Yeah, a lot of
at the
flat
cost
defense.
at the cost of less evasion and target chance.
Yeah.
Now, it's weird to have a weapon that gives defense and evasion. Those don't really work well together. In practice, you're only getting
Well,
value out of one of them.
yeah, yeah.
But a weapon that has high defense and chance to be targeted, that's good for tanks, even if you ignore the evasion. People tend to think of those as like if you want passive target chance, you're also doing evasion, or if you're doing, but you can just go for this on a bulk tank.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh,
Exactly.
the question is, which can the good physical tanks even use katanas?
I don't know, actually. I don't know.
Like, I
And
don't think May can,
you know what the
right?
better question is? Is it even worth finding out? Because will anyone own this STMR in the game?
I mean, let's be clear. Edge is 100% a troll NB. Lots of people will get him when they're pulling for somebody better.
Well, I mean, he's better than fucking AD Axstar.
Yeah, and people are going to pull him, and then they're going to pull more copies of him, or maybe they'll use an STMR Moogle on him, which is not necessarily the worst idea. Except that I'm checking, and it looks like King Bahimi cannot use katanas, neither can May.
Yeah,
Who else
so
is there?
pro-
Gabranth?
pr- probably not useful for anyone really.
Gabranth can use it.
Okay.
Might actually be really good for him, because he could use two, right? And
Yeah,
then
you
that would
only
get
need two edges to like make a Branth a bit stronger, who is like what our weakest physical tank right now of the meta
no,
tanks.
that would be Gladio.
Well, I mean, I said of the meta tanks.
Uh, who else is there? There's probably somebody worse than him, right?
Then Gladio.
Uh,
Well, I mean, Duran, Noppy, and so on, if you want to count those.
yeah, they would be worse. Snow is arguably worse at this point because,
What? No way.
well, Snow is bulkier, but I feel like Snow is at the point where he's not worth the headache. Like, if you want somebody bulky, you're going to use someone else. I would be more likely to use Gabrant than I would be to use Snow. Granted, I have pretty much all the tanks, but
No, no, I agree with you. Like the thing is, Snow is so locked into keeping his bulkiness up, whereas tanks like Gebrand, like Behemi, like Aphmau can actually do
yeah.
other shit,
To
for
be
your
clear,
party.
I would not use Gibrand, but because I have Bahimi and Aphmau, but like he's fairly comparable to Aphmau,
Sure.
whereas Snow is just like a massively worse version of Maeve.
Yeah. All right. So how about his TMR then? It's fairly interesting actually.
Yeah, is this the first one of these that we've gotten?
Debuffer only. Well, there is.
Well,
Didn't we also?
role specific.
No, I well, I don't know about materials, but didn't we get a role specific wrist or something with Tulian's banner that did something very similar, gave you a break on a cooldown, and some other resistance like
I
what is Tulian?
managed to
Earth.
I managed to block Tulian's banner out of my memory, so
Okay,
you
yeah.
would know
No,
better
no.
than
So
me.
I do think we got something. Actually, isn't this Tulian's TMR? It's so good that we're so good at this game. I can't wait to have Dream on here because like at least one of us is then gonna have like an idea about what is happening in this game. Like I need to
Yeah.
look at this. I'm pretty sure that's actually Tulian's TMR
Yeah, so
as well.
this is a materia that it gives you an active ability. It's a 5 turn cooldown. It does an 85% AOE full break and 130% lightning apparel.
Yeah, and
This
yes,
is
Tulian's TMR is a mirror version of this, but for Earth. So we've already seen
okay.
one exactly like this. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I like having options like this. I guess it's boring to just have an element shifted version of something that already exists, but whatever. It's more useful than some of the NVTMs we see.
Yep.
Um,
Absolutely. I mean, you can still
and
put this on units that have the debuffer role, but that you really are pulling in for something else, and they are still become competent breakers, or at least imperilers. Sometimes an
yeah,
imperiler is hard to come by. Like you can give if you're using Cacteria or if you're using Lara in a lightning team, all of a sudden you get a 130 imperil, which is nice. Like I was using 100 imperil when I was doing a lightning team the other day, just because Sakura, and she doesn't
yeah.
have an imperil. So,
For those that don't pay attention, it's worth noting that um, a lot of damage dealers have the debuffer role. Um, it's
well,
not
I
as
would
common
say
as it
it's a
used to be,
stretch. Yeah, exactly. It's not as common anymore. It's a stretch to say a lot, but yeah.
but it's still more common than you'd think. Like I'm just glancing through here. Igni has it. Lara Croft has it. Uh, that's on their shifts, I believe.
Yeah.
Angela has it. Who else? Now we're getting to really old units that aren't relevant, but yeah.
Yeah, but you still said
Um,
three really relevant units. I mean, just being able to make Lara your lightning imperiler is a nice thing.
yeah,
You've had like if you don't have Esther, obviously Esther does everything. But yeah.
yeah. Oh, I guess star player Titus has it on his base
Oh,
form.
okay. Oh,
Oh
that's
wait, no,
nice.
he only has a base form, right? SLB.
Star
Uh,
player Titus.
yeah.
Yeah. Yes, yes.
So I think this will be especially relevant if we start getting more NVAs because so many of them. Back in the day, it seemed like they
Wait,
put
hold on. What is an NVA?
so it's a JP exclusive feature. Basically, they take a unit that's terrible and then they make a new terrible version of them that they can change into.
Oh, well, that sounds interesting if it kind of like makes older units less terrible.
Uh, hmm, eh,
Well,
I
actually,
don't
you
know
know
that I
what?
would
You
go
know what?
that far.
This is a great segue because fuck this unit. We've talked enough about it. This is a great segue into the event actually because we did get screwed. Like again, Gumi made an explicit effort to remove content for us. We are still not getting the NVAs for the Final Fantasy IV banner. Fuck you, Gumi. They've said they're gonna come later, but later in Gumi terms can mean 6 months from now. So really they're treating us like shit, and I don't want to make this all about the NVAs because I don't care that much about NVAs. I care more about the fact that they take an effort to remove stuff compared to putting in an effort to give us stuff. That sucks. Don't really care that specifically about the NVAs, even though it's very nice. But in this case, we did get a Chronicle battle, Golbez and Shadow Dragon. And in order to do this, like in JP, people had options here because what happened is that you got some NVAs and you had some options to do this fight in a proper way fast enough, right?
Yeah,
We didn't get any NVAs. So unless you pulled Kane, Rydia, or Edge, you're gonna be using 7 stars for this Chronicle battle because it's locked to Final Fantasy IV. So yeah, good luck clearing this fight with 7-star Barbie. Enjoy.
So I think there's an option here you might be overlooking, which is that the upgraded version of Kane's STMR, AD Kane, it has a passive on it. It doesn't just work on an NV Kane; it works also on 7-star Kane. And
Right?
just think of how much damage 7-star Kane could do if you gave him 2 copies of that. He
Yeah.
might
What?
he might like push up and like do almost like 10% of Balthier.
Yeah. So I mean, so it's actually ridiculous. Like this event in JP was all of these events are planned around the fact that players will get NVAs and can revisit this event with units they might already have. But this is actual content lockout. There's nothing more I hate in any game than content lockout. Are you locking me out of a fucking boss because you didn't give us NVAs? Because you actually removed the NVAs from the game because you put effort into. Oh, fuck you! All right, rage of men. That's that's what it is.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about how weird it is, or how many like good units Final Fantasy IV has ever gotten? Because it's not many.
I
I'm
mean,
just I'm just looking I'm just looking at the list here, and it
all
is
right,
slim pickings.
hit me, hit me. Who
All
are
right,
who
so
are
let's just
like? Are
go.
there any meta units? Like, were there
Oh
any
yeah.
units meta
Oh
at any
yes.
point?
God yes.
Okay, okay, nice, nice.
Okay,
Well,
so
okay,
let's
Cecil is of course there, so yeah,
yes, yeah, yeah. It it had arguably the most meta unit for like the longest period of time.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Cecil was a beast.
Yeah,
Apart from Cecil, was anyone else on that level of meta on the Final Fantasy forecast?
I don't think any other unit has ever been on that level of meta aside from Phasey. But
Okay, sure, but you know what I mean.
there have been other good units. Barbie was good when she came out, and
Absolutely. Yep.
and I think that's it. Like I'm
Wow.
looking at who else is here. AD Kane, Black Mage Golbez.
Yeah.
Actually no. How do you pronounce that?
K-
Cagnazzo.
Yeah, the 3-star. Yeah.
4-star. He was
Okay.
good because he was the budget provoke tank, because that was at a time when every single provoke tank was a 5-star base except for him. And this was
I
back when
remember
rainbows were
using him
actually
once
rare.
also. Like I actually remember using him once. I don't remember for what, but I know I have used him for. I think he also has some innate resistances that was really good for the fight I used him for.
Yeah, 3-star Cecil was also good back in the 6-star era.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember
Like
wanting
the
to have
very
one.
beginning of it. To be
Yeah.
clear, he
Yeah.
got power cards very fast. Then we have Dark Knight Cecil, who was did high damage on paper when he got his ability awakenings, but was basically unusual because he would kill himself, and I don't think anyone ever actually used him.
Yeah, you had to kind of
I
like you had
yeah,
to cue a cure spell like between his casts in order to
yeah.
make him
I
survive.
tried doing it. It was not worth the headache.
Yeah.
Who else is here? Golbez. Was Golbez the one that we used in Arena? No, that was X Death.
Yeah.
And Palom and Porum were terrible. Pure Summoner Rydia was terrible. Rosa was okay.
Yeah.
White Mage Rosa was. When did she even come out?
I don't
Oh
know.
right, she was the free unit, right?
Yeah, I know Sinzar
Yeah,
used her in a clear once.
yeah. So she was fine. So there's more here than you'd think,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
Paladin,
And I mean,
Cecil, and Barbie are the only ones that I would say were
yeah.
actually good.
And then now in the current meta, obviously the new Kane is super strong. Um,
Yeah,
the caveat is that well, I guess like if you have the new Kane, then this Chronicle battle is easy for you. But the reason why I'm a bit upset is this Chronicle battle. One of the rewards for this Chronicle battle is the recipe for Kane's two-handed spear, which is like a big deal. You want to use that. You want to use that on Sky. You want to use that on many other units. You can just give them equipped spear and use that. Um, but you can't get that unless you have Kane, Rydia, or Edge. I don't even know if just a Rydia is enough to do it in the turn limit. So but feel free to correct me in the comments. Um, so yeah, this is quite a shitty move. Honestly, this is quite a shitty move. Um, oh, sorry. Actually, I am wrong. So the recipe is not time or turn based. The recipe you just get if you clear the game, and I get
yeah.
the fight. And I guess you can just clear it with Barbie if you want. Like it's gonna take fucking forever, but you can do it if you really
Uh,
want that spear.
you can only bring Final Fantasy 4 units, right? Surviving might be an issue.
Well, I don't know about
I,
that.
I,
Like
I
there
honestly
are,
don't know what the boss does.
I'm gonna. Well, I'm gonna assume you just gear because it's Golbez. It's probably magic. Like whatever he hits you with, you can probably evade because edge. So it's probably
Uh,
like evade, provoke, tank, maybe with some mirage, and then all you need is like really heavy resistances. But I mean, you can gear units for resistances, so that's probably fine,
so I am looking at the wiki page, and it actually
right?
lists the skills for the bosses, which is unusual for these.
Okay.
Um, the Shadow Dragon each turn uses single target death and fixed damage, which looks like 999,000 damage.
Right, so that's gonna kill a unit every turn. It seems to be provocable though.
Yeah, but do any of like how are you going to get re-raise? I'm trying to think which of these units can do it. I
Doesn't
guess
Rosa have?
Rosa, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Isn't there another healer in the Final Fantasy forecast? It's like I mean, Rosa is the healer, but like, okay, yeah. So I don't know. Like I mean,
Oh, I'm dumb. I you know who has re-raise?
Cecil.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's fucking broken. Yeah, or was. Yeah, yeah, of course. Well, I mean, if you bring Cecil to this, like as you see, like there's a lot of magic damage being done, and yeah, I don't know. Nothing of it is like there is one dark element damage. So I guess like if you bring Cecil with dark resist, I don't know, drain and osmos. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. There are videos on this though. You can go watch a video. Sinzar had a budget video out as well. So if you really
Yeah,
need that spear, you can get it.
Cecil looks like he'd be really well suited to this because the boss does a single target MP drain and also does the death. But Cecil can provoke the death and the MP drain. Then he has an MP drain that doesn't cost MP. Although if he dies, I guess that would put him back in light stance instead of dark stance. So no, he wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah. Also, they are called drain and osmos. So I wonder if these are sealable with anethicite. Could be. I don't know.
Good point, maybe. Although
Again,
maybe the boss uses other stuff first.
yeah, and I want to repeat, go watch a video. Like there are videos
Yeah,
on how to do this boss fight. I honestly haven't looked into it just because I'm so mad that we didn't get the NVAs. Not again because of the NVAs, but because they are explicitly removing content. And in this case, it's not only making me angry because they're putting in effort to remove content, it's also fucking me over in this trial. And I don't have the energy or love for FFBE right now to do like a 100 turn clear against Golbas. Like I don't, so I'm not gonna do that.
it would be a lot less bad than it used to be now that they have the repeat timing thing.
Yeah, try. I guess you hit repeat and go home. If you
Yeah,
can get like a nice rotation on everyone, so that like
yeah,
Cecil
or
does
you
his
could try to
stuff.
get like a macro, even just to match repeat for you.
Yeah, but that's still like such a hassle when it could have been fun. Like this could have been. Here's my biggest gripe with this. This could have been a great reason to like dust off some units that you haven't used in a while. Just have some fun. Like Barbie, I really liked Barbie when she came out. I thought she was a really cool unit. Um, this would be a great opportunity to just use her. Like NVA Barbie, just go in. But yeah, no NVA Barbie. So I guess that's not gonna happen. Such a shame. Such a shame.
Yeah,
But yeah, that's about it really for this week's content. I want to say like not much more to say. There's also a normal chronicle that you can farm. You get at least 1,000 lapis from it, so like go crazy. Not much more to say. Like I guess there's the Esther boss, eggs over hard. Um, I honestly don't remember
we
how I
talked about
killed
that
it.
last week though.
No, but this was new for this week, right?
Oh, you don't mean the Clash one?
No, 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 no. I mean the new like there's a Dark Esther and there's like a difficult version of her.
Oh,
Basically you need to kill her with lightning damage, surprise, surprise. And she's killable by turn 2, so I don't need like we don't need to talk about it really.
I really like how Gumi is setting up for a future element shifted version of Esther that's just the exact same except dark.
Hmm.
Because you know that's going to happen, right?
Yeah, yeah. Seems lazy enough. Yes, yes. But yeah, like now that we've gone over the content and like vented some of the rage at Gumi, I wanted to spend this time on our last podcast episode with you. Well, you should never say never. Maybe you're gonna come back as a guest star when White Knight Noel gets his NVA or a Neo version of him. But I wanted to, I wanted to ask you some questions about FFB that might get us talking a bit about old FFB and when we actually enjoy the game. So, if you had to like rank it, what are your top 3 moments in FFB? Like, can you think of them?
Uh, I'm not sure if I can do top three. I think my favorite trials were probably Rumble of Malboro when I finally beat it, which
Oof, yeah.
was long after it came out. Uh, Aigayon, or Machina of Destruction, as people might know it. That one was also really good. And then I guess my third one would be Venomous Minds of Death, because I did that fight differently than most people. I think a lot of people used Mirage or something. I used physical cover and then just let the magic damage hit my team. That was with Shui Yu.
Right, right, right.
Uh,
I mean, like that's just as
no,
much
sorry,
cheese
not
as
not not
using
Shui Yu. What was it? Shui Yu is the envy healer. What was the monk?
Shuwen.
Xuan Yu, Xuan Wu,
Shuen
right?
Yu, okay, yeah. Yeah, but that's just as much cheese as using Mirage or evade tanks, I want to say, because
I
like,
mean, I had to gear the rest of my team for a lot of health too.
sure, that's true, I guess.
Shinryu was also fun. I liked fights that really hit your team hard,
Yeah, the classic
for the
trials,
most
right?
part. Yeah,
I remember it's you and was it Dream or has no, it was you and Hazard. You were always the non-dodge tank purist as well, right? Like trying to defeat trials without
yeah,
resorting to evade tanks.
yes, yeah. I hated dodge, and I still do. Although at least nowadays they have accuracy, so it's not like it's made physical tanks irrelevant like it did for a very long time.
Right, right. Okay. Well, cool. So it sounds like your top moments were trials, right? Like, do you have any
Yeah.
like shittering story you want to share of like a time when you got that unit you wanted or got the unit you didn't want?
Trying to think. I pulled a lot on Bosch's banner, because he was like
Obviously,
the best magic tank at the time. Even though
yeah.
Final Fantasy 12 is a garbage game for garbage people.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely agreed. Could not agree with you more. Like you will always have an ally in me when it comes to hating Final Fantasy 12, all right? You'll always
I
have that.
I I did not manage to pull Bosch on that banner. I got many copies of Balthier, who is an even more garbage character.
Yeah.
Um, and then
And a garbage
in
unit, honestly.
yeah, I did eventually pull Bosch. I started pulling him a lot after he had been power crept. I think by now I'm up to like by the end of the 7-star era, I think I had over 17 copies of him. By now, I don't know, probably 30 or 40 with
Yeah.
with all the buffed rainbow rates. I've lost track of how many rainbows I have. It's not even worth counting anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I have to move rainbows from my normal stash because I don't want to like I don't have the time
Yeah.
to fuse them, so it's just filling up my inventory space.
Yeah. I always
Um
told new players not to sell rainbows, but I'm honestly at the point where I might have to start selling rainbows.
yeah, absolutely selling rainbows. Yeah. Okay, so but I mean, obviously Bosch was really good, not just as a magic tank, but he was a really competent breaker at the time as well. So like he was
Yeah.
fantastic actually. I remember the Bosch era. Those are like the golden days of FFB. But cool. So like now that we are talking about the units, like what are your top 3 favorite units? But just please don't pick 3 tanks.
Too bad. Favorite
Damn
unit,
it.
I think White Knight Noel. White Knight Noel was the first unit
That's never
where
saw
where I
that
really
coming.
where I really started to come up with strats on my own. Because at the time he was the only provoke tank in the game, and nobody really knew what a provoke tank was because snow existed, like 4-star snow, and he could provoke, but he couldn't really tank because he would die if you had him do it. He didn't have any kind of mitigation. So at the time, at the end of every boss's turn, they would just like spam out like 20 normal attacks and they would hit random units and you would hope that they didn't target the same unit over and over again and kill them. And that was really all there was to it. Noel was the first case where you could actually direct all of those onto one unit and make things a lot more consistent and safe. And you never saw guides for those strats on Reddit or anything because basically nobody had Noel. At the time that his banner came out, nobody knew what a provoke tank was. They looked at Noel and they were like, he's a mage, but he's a bad mage, and they didn't pull because Noel
Yeah.
had like mage stuff in his kit that didn't matter. You should have ignored it, but people focused on it.
Right, right,
Um,
right, right. I mean, they assumed
so
that was what his role was.
Yeah, so I would start looking at boss AIs and being like, okay, can I use Noel here? Can I tackle this fight differently than everyone else is? And yeah, and it made things a lot of fights a lot easier, or at least I could tackle things in a way that no one else was, or almost no one else. And then when 6-star Cagnazzo came out, I told people like, hey, this unit is actually really good. I know most people have probably never used a unit like this before, but give him a try. He'll surprise you.
Right. But
Because
I
yeah,
also think a lot of people slept on White Knight Noel as well, because like those that don't know, he has this OP ability called Steel that was so ahead of the meta because like it has 75% physical damage mitigation and 75% magic damage mitigation in one ability. Oh my god.
reading threads on Reddit from that era is hilarious because all the reviews of well, almost all the reviews of Noel are clueless. They're either talking about his damage or talking about having him tank while dealing damage, or in my particular favorite, there's one guy who's like, I don't know that I would consider Noel to be any better than Cecil.
Oh,
And to be clear, we're talking about 6-star Cecil here, the guy that has passive single target cover and
yeah,
nothing
yeah.
else.
Exactly. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I remember you've always been a champion for White Knight Noel. I definitely think like, hey Gumi, if you're listening, if you want to pull Muspel back into the game, just release an Easter Night Noel version, and he's back.
Yeah. They've generally been pretty good to him with later updates. His ability awakenings were good. His 7-star was also fine, although by that point he certainly was starting to fall behind. He was clunkier by that point.
Right.
But he didn't get completely screwed with enhancements or 7-star like a lot of other units did. Each time they were trying to do something, and they at least made him okay at that job.
Hmm.
Let's see, what other units? Probably need to pull up a list of global exclusive units because let's be honest, those are the only good ones.
Are you sure? Like, I mean, we just spoke about Cecil
I didn't like Cecil.
and
Like
Bosch.
Cecil was good, but he was also bad for the game.
Yeah, sure, sure. Yeah, he
Oh,
did
you
wait.
know who I really liked?
No.
You AI Katie.
Oh yeah, you did. Like you had a huge thing for AI Katie. I remember this. I
Yeah.
remember this.
So this is another case where AI Katie let you do a lot of stress that people weren't thinking of, and this was in an era when most breakers were doing 75%. Right? That sounds about right to me.
Sure,
Um,
sure.
AI Katie was a tank who could also apply 70% brakes, and she could redo that every turn. She was a little squishier than most tanks, and the brakes were a little weaker, so you would be taking more damage. But at the time in that era, you would generally run a healer, a tank, a breaker, a provoke tank, and 2 damage dealers. Or you would
Right,
run, instead of the provoke tank, you would run a buffer. What AI Katie let you do was, since you didn't have to bring a dedicated breaker, you could bring 2 tanks and a buffer, and it made things really safe in a lot of cases. As long as you could keep AI Katie alive, which generally involves some STMRs, but I had the gear, so that was fine. And it was cool to go through fights like that, just basically making yourself really safe, but in a way that most team comps didn't.
right, right. No, I fully understand the sentiment, or I fully understand the feeling. I also I really like the double tank meta. Actually, now that I think about it,
Yeah,
that was a fun meta. Like you had to gear two bulky units, one usually like one provoke tank, and as you said, one provoke tank, one cover tank, and just to be able to soak up all the single target spells and or attacks. So it was a good it was a good meta actually. There were some nice trials coming out during that meta.
yeah.
I seem to
And then
recall.
the last unit I want to talk about is also global exclusive. He was a unit that was very, very underrated by everyone in that era. He was a light damage dealer, sort of a chainer from a collab. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Oh God, like no, say it, say it. I don't know, but I know this is gonna be funny. So
He was from a very popular Square Enix intellectual property. It started with a K.
Kingdom
Come,
Hearts.
no, no.
God
He
damn
was
it!
he was the only top rarity unit from this collab, and he chained with a weird family.
Wait,
It
wait,
was
Kings.
almost
It's the stupid Rayjack unit, isn't
yes, no,
it? Yeah,
and no. I didn't actually like Rayjack. Rayjack was terrible.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. What?
I'm not really
Yeah.
sure there's a hero unit that I like as much as those two, but I did like the idea of Emperor Fu as a unit.
Mm.
Um,
You
he
were
was a
always
diff.
like a fan of the weird units.
I liked the rule compression.
right?
Emperor
Well,
Fu
you
was
should
like
love Edge.
yeah. Well, rule compression is too common nowadays. They don't like push the envelope the way that some of these older units did.
True, true.
Um, Emperor Fu was a different twist on AIKD. AIKD combined breaker and tank. Fu combined buffer and breaker. The problem was that his breaks were a little too weak, and his rotation was a little too clunky. I did use him some, but he never got anywhere close to as much use as KD did. And
Yeah.
he also did like 8 fucking autocasts at the start of every turn, and it was
Yeah,
miserable.
that was really frustrating. Like that was like it was him and fucking Zeno. Like I loved Zeno as a unit and in the story, but like, oh my god, nobody has time to wait for autocasts.
Yeah.
Um, but okay, is there literally no damage dealer that you enjoyed except for Shuwen or whatever?
I didn't even like Schwen all that much. I mean,
You did though. Like you talked
I,
about
I,
them
I
a
used
fucking
Schwen
lot,
a lot because it let me do fights without an evasion tank. Because
right?
for a lot of those fights, like the only way that you could do it was you had to let the magic damage hit your party. But the magic damage was wildly overtuned, so you needed a damage dealer that could survive it. But for me, it wasn't really about Schwen. It was just like, I don't want to use dodge. This is basically the only way around it.
Okay, okay, fine. But okay, but so aside from them, is there a damage dealer you have enjoyed that have a
Um,
positive relationship to?
Not really.
So
Trying to
they're
think.
just tools.
Well, they're just generally boring. I'm trying to think of ones that like have actually interesting kits, and I can't really think of any. Yeah, there's just generally not much there, but it's almost all that Alum and Gumi release. So
Yeah, I mean that's why I'm asking because damage dealers is of course the vast majority of units that we get.
yeah,
Just wondering if you had a favorite from like a game that you enjoyed or that you like used a lot.
nah, not really. I don't think. Oh, another honorable mention to Zargabath, who was really cool, is like
Who?
the
Zarg.
earliest
Oh yeah,
grid
Zarg.
buffer.
Oh my god, I loved Zarg. He was
Yeah,
also actually a unit that was very underrated at the time. People
yeah.
did not understand why he was so good.
People were waiting for enhanced Ramza,
Sure.
who, and they thought that Ramza was going to be massively better than Zark, and
I mean,
maybe
but that
Ramza would
wasn't
have
even the
been.
case. I mean, that wouldn't have been the case. That was the
Yeah,
point I
well,
was
well,
trying to make back in the day.
oh sure, I agree. I think that Zarg was at worst on par with Ramza and arguably better,
Yeah,
but I can see why people didn't really understand him. I think versatile units are always hard to adequately or to accurately rate.
sure, sure. No, I
But he
agree.
was very good.
But that's the whole thing. Like I think that as as a community or the community as a whole, um, has always been rating the very rating highly the very specialized units. Really, like like the huge buffers, the big damage dealers, the bulky tanks, but very rarely talked about units. I have a pet peeve of my own actually. Back when the Dragon Quest banner was released, Selena came out as a healer, and I really enjoyed her a lot because she was actually very interesting due to her kit being versatile. She had a lot of things going for her at that point. Damage mitigation was a big deal; like you needed to have it on a unit that wasn't your tank. And I really loved how she compressed your mitigator and your elemental buffer and your healer and a lot of other things in one unit. But people hated her. Like or people just didn't understand the power of her. Yes, you had to go through loops to like make it all work, but it was kind of the same with Katy Perry, like if you could make it work, it was really really powerful. I used
Yeah,
her for a lot of fights, actually.
I think Serena mostly just suffered from Lena having been out for a while already at that point, and most people had pulled her off banner if nothing else. So she was
Yeah,
at
I
best a sky
guess.
grade.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
I don't think anyone thought Serena was bad. I just think they thought she wasn't worth pulling for.
Yeah, the big deal for me with her was really the mitigations. Like she had big mitigations at that time. 40% mitigation was really big. If you could do that on turn one, and there were
Yeah,
tanks that needed the help on turn one before their mitigation started rolling. So it was like she filled a niche for me. Like I
hmm,
know I think she was the best unit for my clears for several clears.
yeah.
So, given like you only like tanks, are there any favorite events? Like, and now we're not talking like you can't say trials. You can't say trials. Are there any events you've enjoyed? Like, like the chocobo, the fucking chocobo slots. I know you love those.
Fuck those events.
Yeah,
Um, I don't really remember the details of them, but I liked in the very early era of FFBE when the events were genuinely hard. I mean, part of that I think was that they were hard because nobody had any idea what they were doing.
yeah,
Um, and sometimes I think they edged into being too hard, uh, where people just didn't manage to clear them. Too many people, and I think that's why they started making easier ones. But stuff like Maxwell or
oh yeah, Maxwell. Holy shit.
yeah, or the one where you fought the no, the one where you fought the four fiends. I think that one was definitely too hard. That one was one where you pretty much had to find a lightning thread to carry you. I think.
Yeah, yeah, I remember that.
Um, there was one where you fought Kefka, and I think a lot of people just used Setzer because he had like a weird mechanic where he had rotating elemental resists and crazy high defense. So instead,
Yeah,
people use Setzer to just damage him all the time. Um, just stuff like that, because a lot of those events were back when healing was a lot lower. Kiraja didn't exist,
yeah,
so
exactly.
your he- you were on a clock before your healer ran out of mana because you couldn't keep healing indefinitely, and your healer couldn't top everyone off every turn. So you were just kind of trying to bail out a sinking ship. So there was a turn limit, but it wasn't a hard turn limit, and it was kind of based on how well you managed incoming damage, and that was really fun.
Exactly. Yeah, the attrition fights we really, really miss.
Yeah,
And we've talked about this before. I was kind of hoping the cow was going to bring that back, given that they teased the healing reduction um, EX modifiers, but it never happened. Unfortunately, I want to say because attrition fights is also how I remember the original Final Fantasies, which is kind of what this game is all about. It's about nostalgia
yeah,
to a high degree, right? And like there was never a fucking battle in Final Fantasy history where I set up my team for maximum burst and then did all that burst in one turn. Like that's not what I remember. I remember, battles
yeah,
of attrition, healing units, sometimes even using items to get units up and fixing tricky turns where I
yeah.
had
Like
to deal with a unit dying.
the only time in a Final Fantasy game when you would ever see a one turn kill on a boss would be some kind of meme strap or a bug or just sort of like an intentional. I don't want to say exploit, but like it's like having Sabin suplex the train or using a Phoenix down on that one boss in Final Fantasy VII. Like
Yeah,
you can do it, but it's not the big cool boss fight that everyone remembers. It's just kind of like,
exactly.
oh, haha, there was this boss that didn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. No, no, I fully agree. And my take on this is that I think that or FFBE should never had tanks or Karaja in the game. Like I just I mean,
Yeah, or at least not in their current form. I think you could have done tanks in a way that was interesting, but they would. I think they would have to have. I've mentioned this, maybe not on the podcast, but like, imagine if cover abilities had a modifier, and like, let's say a 5x cover ability would block 5 times your defense damage to team members. So, like, if the boss hits for 10k and your tank has 500 defense and your cover has a 5x modifier, your tank covers 2500 damage from each party member.
right, exactly. And that would still make it so that your party members get hit. Because
Yeah,
I'm thinking back to the old Final Fantasies, like there was no tank mechanic. Your entire party could get hit at any point, and you had to heal all of your units, and you could get unlucky and the wrong unit got hit a couple of times and died.
yeah.
But the thing is that was never a wipe, because there, like, if your tank dies in FFB, you're absolutely fucked, because there's no way to get back up and get all of those buffs going, before the boss wipes you again.
Yeah,
Whereas in classic Final Fantasy, oh no, Terra died. Well, I will revive her and do less damage for a couple of turns while I am getting back to, normal. And that has really been lost, like fully lost in this game. This game is all about negating all damage and bursting in a single turn. And
yeah,
yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame. This game could have had so much potential, but went down the wrong path.
yeah.
Anyway, I've run out of questions. I was planning on asking some weird sexual questions too, like are you into donkeys but I chose not to because this is such a sad moment. So instead, I just want to thank you for these almost 2 years of
I
recording
think
this.
I think it's been over 2 years, right?
It is,
Didn't
right? We did
when was
have
our
an
first
anniversary
episode?
episodes. I hope so. So, hey,
Yeah,
thanks for these 2 years, Muspel. You were a good friend, and I had fun recording with
yeah. I'll miss you. I won't miss the game, but I'll miss the community.
you. Yeah, that didn't sound very sincere. Oh man, yeah, but it was good. It was good times. It was good times. So one last question, actually, that I just dawned on me. So what's gonna happen with the wiki ratings? Like, is there a successor planned?
I have not anointed a successor. That will be up to everybody else involved.
Like, will
Sailing
they
and
will they have to receive the ceremonial jizz in their hair?
all right, everybody. That's our show. Bye.
Bye.